Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Savsocial912 podcast. I'm your host, Missy. I have Enocha Edenfield on with me, and we're going to kind of kick off the spooky season of October with probably one of the greatest people that I know of in town. So before we get going though, why don't you give our listeners a little background about you, kind of how you came to Savannah and started a very successful tour company.
Yeah, it just happened. None of this was on purpose. I moved to Savannah in 2010. I'm originally from the Florida Panhandle, but I moved up here to be the morning news producer at the NBC affiliate here in town. Did that for about 10 years and then was leaving to go to another job right as the pandemic shutdown happened.
Terrible timing.
Right. And because of the shutdown, a lot of places that had been hiring stopped hiring. So the job I was leaving to go to went away.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a job. I was also dealing with some health issues that summer. And so I was stuck at home, bored out of my skull, just like everybody else was that year. And just to have that connection to the outside world, I downloaded TikTok because I was like,
those were like the golden years of
right.
TikTok.
You can just see what's going on everywhere else. It's very relaxed. And around July of that year, people decided that time was meaningless. We were skipping ahead to Halloween. Everybody's telling ghost stories. And I hadn't really been creating content by that point. I was just watching. And I thought, well, I live in Savannah and we're one of the most haunted cities in the country. I have some ghost stories. I know other people have ghost stories. Let's start making just some silly little videos about Savannah's ghost stories.
Yeah.
And I would go live at night. I would walk around with my dog downtown because it's very easy to socially distance when there's no one else out.
Yes, it was like a ghost town in Savannah for a long time. No pun intended.
Right. But people really liked the way that I talked about the city, how I explained things. They really vibed with it. And when things started opening up, people started asking for in-person tours. And that wasn't something that I'd even been considering. I was still looking for a regular job. And I thought, well, I guess we're doing this, when it's time to break out and do something else. Sometimes the universe just pushes you in the right direction.
Yes, throws you a curveball. Well, I'm glad that they did. Obviously, you have a lot of success with it. So from TikTok to where you are now, like how has kind of like the business changed? Because I'm sure it was like probably more personal in the beginning with like tours where people wanted to small groups, but now I feel like you're very sought after. So like how
it's still very personal. I've discovered that I don't really like going over 15 people in a group, just because, especially when you're dealing with like 15 strangers. Like it's totally different if people all know each other, like it's a bachelorette party or birthday party or something like that. Then I can do larger groups because everybody knows everybody. But once you get out of that, it just takes my, it's very hard to concentrate, essentially.
Absolutely.
Because I have to be, first off, engaging them with my stories, also keeping an eye on them, and keeping an eye on everybody else around us, because, part of leading a tour is making sure that everybody starts and ends the tour safely.
Yes, definitely.
And it's just really hard to do that. And everybody comes to tours with their own energy. And as a tour guide, it is a type of performance.
Yes.
And you kind of feed off the energy of your crowd. So when you've got a lot of different types of energy in a small little group, it's hard. It's really hard.
And you have different levels of like belief systems too. You have people who are like very into paranormal things, and then you have people who are like skeptics and probably trying to like poke holes in every story that you tell. So it's a delicate balance.
Yes,
for sure.
So I still would. The majority of the tours that I do are private, but I do offer public tours on Friday and Saturday nights just because of that high demand, especially since you get a lot of couples here, and not everybody is comfortable in a private tour. Not everybody wants all that attention on them.
Yes.
So I started offering 2 nights a week as public tours.
That's really cool. So obviously you had a background in the film industry or like broadcasting. So what was it like transitioning into like starting a tour guide business? Or, Savannah's got a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, just the paperwork to get it done was a huge pain, but I feel like it's kind of like that in most cities, especially in cities that have a lot of tourism and have a lot of other tours. You want to make sure that it's not just some random dude off the street
Yes.
starting tours.
Yes.
You want to make sure there's some legitimacy there. So, well, it was a pain to go through. I'm glad I got it done.
Yes, and I think that's one of my favorite parts about your content is that it feels very like matter of fact, or like there's a lot of research behind it, and like I feel like you share your opinions, but it's really based more on like the facts and all that. I hope I'm like
Yeah.
not running away with the concept. As your tourism business has started to flourish, do you expect for there to be like more business in October? Because that's kind of like the prime time.
October is one of my busiest months. I've already booked out Halloween. Halloween night is booked.
Right.
So
Do you do anything special specifically for Halloween?
not necessarily. I might tell some slightly scarier stories, so some stories that I don't often tell, but for the most part, it's just a ghost tour.
Yeah.
Because that's what people want. They just want to go on a ghost tour on Halloween night and hear some spooky stories.
Yes, and there's a lot of spooky places and a lot of like haunted history in Savannah.
Yes.
I met with Chris and Megan with the Paranormal Museum, and we were talking about the Marshall House being really haunted. Are there any other spots around town that you would highlight?
Well, River Street in general is also very haunted just because it's one of the older areas of the city, and a lot of things have happened there over the years. That used to be our old port. And when you have a lot of sailors coming in and a lot of ships being built, that leads to a lot of tragedy.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of haunts down on River Street. But I don't go there on my tours. In fact, I only go there during the slow times of the year.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of people.
Yes. It's always crowded.
And so when I do my live streams, people often ask, like, go down to River Street. I'm like, it's going to be loud. I don't want to go down there for that.
Yeah. And it's very populated. Yes. And like, there's so much history throughout the entire city. Like, I've experienced a lot of spooky things happening near the park, over here at Eastern Wharf, there isn't as much spooky stuff, but you were telling me there's a lot of history.
Yeah. Well,
Eastern Wharf. Again,
connected to the port, this area of town and stretching east was also a big shipbuilding place for a while, especially during World War II. We had the Liberty ships that were being built in this area. So there's a lot. Yeah. And even there's stuff before that as well.
Yeah. I feel like there's history behind like the building and creation of Savannah, and then just history behind the people who lived here throughout the years and all that. So do you want to maybe share like a spooky story or something along those lines? It can be historical too if you want. I have a few follow-up questions after, but is there like a favorite story that you have maybe for Halloween season?
Well, when I was first starting my tour company, my friend Rebecca used to do ghost tours in Wilmington, North Carolina. And she and I had been discussing some things. She knows starting up this business. And she said, hey, I'm not trying to freak you out, but you are going to a lot of haunted places, and you're going to the same haunted places over and over. The spirits that hang out there will get familiar with you.
Yes.
And sometimes you will have some interactions. Occasionally, not often, but occasionally, one might try to follow you home. If that happens, set your boundaries, let them know they can't do that. They have to stay there. And I was like, yeah, sure, Rebecca, that's probably never going to happen. And it has happened to me twice.
Right. So how do you combat that?
So the first time it happened was actually next to Colonial Park Cemetery. And normally that's a pretty busy place, busy for a lot of tours, a lot of pedestrians, even cars going up and down the road. And that particular night, it was eerily quiet. There was no one out on the sidewalk. There was no one out on the street. It was, for lack of a better word, dead. And I was walking down the sidewalk towards the old police department because I had parked on the other side of it. I get about halfway down that sidewalk and I feel someone behind me. And since my background is broadcast news, my first thought was, oh no, I'm about to get mugged.
Oh no, no.
So I thought, okay, what I'm going to do, because the police department's right there. And at this point, it wasn't under renovations.
Right.
There's still people.
And this is up Oglethorpe Street, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around real quick. I'm going to yell at whoever's following me. That'll throw them off. And then I'm going to run very, very quickly to the police department. So I turn around and there's no one on that sidewalk behind me.
Chills.
And I still felt someone there. I just didn't see anybody. And I remember what Rebecca said. And I thought, okay, all right, this is happening. That's fun. I guess we're going to try this. I hope it works.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to look really brave and I said, I don't know who you are. I don't care. You can't follow me. You have to stay here. I turned and tried to bravely walk towards my car while also walking very quickly.
Yes.
And whoever it was listened and stayed put, because the farther I walked away, the smaller the presence felt, like they had stayed right there.
Yes. And I will say, like, you know, I'm not totally in the ghost world, but I've certainly had a few ghost interactions in Savannah. You have to believe it or not. But I did kind of find out, like, the more stern you are with them or like direct with them, the more they'll leave you alone. It's like, if you start getting scared, I feel like they feed off of the fear and want to keep going, but also don't cancel me for, you know, talking about personal ghost stories. So that's like a real life ghost story. Are there any others you've experienced, like, in your 15 years living here?
Well, not a ghost story necessarily. It does kind of.
That's more of a ghost interaction.
Yes. When I was working in news, I worked the overnight shift. And that was about midnight to 8 or 9 in the morning. And part of our job was to listen to the police scanners, because if there was a fire or something, we had to send a photographer out. And one night I was sitting in the newsroom with my co-producer, and we heard this 911 operator get on the scanner and ask for a police response to this certain address. And she said that the caller, who was an older woman, had said she was worried about a ghost in her house.
Oh my goodness.
And the sigh that came from the responding officer was just, seriously? I got the impression that she was a frequent caller.
Right.
But when they get calls like that, they still have to respond, because even though the caller thinks it may be a ghost, it could actually be a living, breathing person.
Sure. And that has happened in this city too.
So they still had to go check it out. I just thought it was so funny that this woman, in her panic, her first thought was, let's call 911.
Right.
They'll know what to do.
Because the police know how to arrest ghosts, for sure.
Yes. Oh, funny story about that, though. There is actually a historic case in Savannah where the police tried to use a ghost to solve a murder.
Oh, I'd love to hear about this.
So sometimes when you come to Savannah, people like to talk about the famous triple axe murder that we had here in the early 1900s.
Wait, I don't know this story.
Ooh, you don't know?
Tell me more.
So in the early 1900s, there was actually a large number of axe murders going on around the country. And some people believe that may have been done by one person, or that one person was responsible for multiple.
Right, and moving around.
Right, because these always occurred close to train stations. Same thing here in Savannah. Over on the other side of the Civic Center, where there's that tiny little strip of land that still claims to be Albert Square, there was a boarding house called the Gribble House. And the woman who ran it also lived there with her adult daughter, and she was renting a room out to a boarder, Maggie Hunter. Well, one day somebody's walking by the house and the door is wide open. They run over there. They see Maggie clinging to life at the front door. She's been attacked, has a massive head wound. A doctor is alerted. They investigate the home, and the woman operating the boarding house and her daughter were found murdered, also attacked with head wounds.
Oh my goodness.
And they never found the weapon, but at the time it was believed to be an axe murder.
Okay.
Maggie clings to life for a couple of days at the hospital, in and out of consciousness. But with brain damage, she wasn't really cognizant.
Yeah, and the hospitals in the 1900s.
Right.
Not what we have today.
No. And during one of these periods where she was kind of in and out of consciousness, she mentioned her husband's name, and everybody was like, he did it. J.C. Hunter's the one who did it. But before that, there was a lot of panic because 3 women were attacked in broad daylight. And of course, the police are just rounding up anybody who even looks suspicious.
Right.
They arrested one man and they thought, this is the guy. He totally did it. We don't have any evidence or anything, but we think he did it. And so their plan to coax a confession out of him was to bring him back to the Gribble House. Somebody had mannequins that they dressed in the woman's clothing. They staged them where they were found. And they were going to lead this suspect through the Gribble House and have a person in a chic ghost costume follow them through the house.
Okay, who orchestrated this plan? Because this is like very creative.
But it did not work because the guy was like, I told you I didn't kill these women. Also, why is that guy wearing a sheet?
Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't work. But the police did try to use a ghost to coax a confession out of a guy.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. But the police department, they were more creative back then, I guess.
I guess.
So I feel like there's also a lot of lore with like the 1790 house. Do you know the story about that?
So
Or it's a hotel, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a historic inn, and the name itself actually refers to the first year that Savannah had its own freely elected government following the American Revolution. The building itself is not from 1790. It's actually 3 buildings that were combined into one.
Got it.
And if you go past it, the first level, the brick level, is the lobby, restaurant, and bar. 2 upper floors are the hotel rooms. Now, there's the story that you hear, and then there's what we actually know.
See, this is why I'm curious. Please set the record straight.
So there's a lot of variations on the story. The most famous ghost who haunts 1790 is the ghost of Anna.
Yes, Anna.
Yes, and there are variations on her background story, but it boils down to she was either the wife or daughter of the innkeeper, and one day she falls in love with a sailor in the port of Savannah, and her husband or father finds out about it, locks her away in her bedroom. She's forced to watch her lover sail down the Savannah River without her. And she's desperate, and she throws herself off the top floor. That is not a very far fall. You would have to fall very specifically for that to kill you.
Yes.
And there's no evidence that an innkeeper lost a daughter or wife that way. We have no documentation to back that up. There was a woman named Anna who did live there, but she passed away, I believe, in her 80s from natural causes. So maybe it's her. Maybe she's been haunting that place for a while, and they just didn't feel like that was a cool enough story, so people started exaggerating things.
You need to jazz it up. But I do think there is some like young female drama stories in Savannah, because isn't there one like the Waving Girl is a dramatic story, or it's not like there's no murder in it,
right?
But like that's a whole like long thing, right?
That, and maybe that's another place where people got the idea about Anna,
maybe
because
mixing them together.
Yeah, because she did live. The Waving Girl statue down on the river was an actual woman. I cannot remember her name right now. But she and her brother lived on one of the tiny little islands in the Savannah River. Her brother was a lighthouse keeper, river light keeper, more specifically.
Right.
And they lived out there together, and she would wave to the ships. And somewhere along the way, somebody decided that she was lonely. She was out there, and she'd fall in love with a sailor. And he promised to come back and, marry her. And so every time she saw a ship go by, she would wave to it. And before she died, she actually told a newspaper reporter, yeah, I never fell in love with a sailor. I just figured, these poor guys, they've been out at sea for a while.
Yeah.
They would probably appreciate if somebody was happy to see them.
I can relate living at Eastern Wharf. We see the ships go by and we wave as well. And then there's also a story that I remember from Bonaventure. I think her name was Corinne. Mm-hmm. And that's another dramatic, like young adult love story, or ghost story,
which is also really disproven.
Spooky story.
So a Corinne Lawton, who incidentally, the Bonaventure Historical Society every year does an event called Bonaventure Speaks, where they have historic interpreters.
Yes, why don't you drop a line about that since it's happening?
It's all going to merge together. So every year they have Bonaventure Speaks, which is a great event. It's one of our big fundraisers because I'm a member of the Historical Society. And what we do is we have historic interpreters dressed up as some of the people who call Bonaventure their final resting place. And we do a nighttime tour of the cemetery where you get to walk around, see these people, and hear their stories in their own words. It's happening on October 25th.
Oh, that's coming right up.
Yes.
Great.
And it will sell out quickly. So if you're listening to this and you're interested, get your tickets now.
Savsocial exclusive.
But this year, I get to portray Corinne Lawton.
No way.
Yes.
Oh my God, full circle. So yes, please tease a little, share what you want. But
so the Lawton plot is close to the river there in Bonaventure Cemetery. And there are 2 big monuments. There's one for the family. That's this big arch, and it has Jesus in the front of it. And then there's a statue of Corinne, and she faces away from that family monument. And a lot of people said, oh, well, she died tragically. And that's why her family has her statue facing away. It's this big dramatic thing.
Oh my goodness.
and that she had fallen in love with a poor man and her family objected to the marriage. So one night she fills her pockets with rocks and walks into the river and dies. And it's very dramatic.
That's so dramatic.
So many of these stories are women losing their minds over a man and falling falling onto, walking into something.
Yeah.
And like, we have nothing better to do.
Yeah, the storytelling was a little vicious back then. But to kind of bounce off of that, I feel like there's some really impressive like female figures in history in Savannah, like Mary Telfair and Juliette Gordon-Low and all of them. Not to say you have to like dig into them because they're not so spooky.
Mary Telfair is also buried out at Bonaventure.
Oh, yes.
And here's the fun thing about her, which not a lot of people realize because you walk by it and you're like, yeah, that's her headstone. She and her sister, her brother-in-law, and her parents are all buried in an underground crypt there. So what you see up top, yes, that's their memorial stones, but they are buried all underneath in a room. And Mary Telfair, very type A woman, was very magnanimous. She did leave her home to become the Telfair Academy, first public art museum in the South. Left money to start the first women's and children's hospital.
Apparently she was a force.
Yes. But she was very particular about a lot of things. And she did not want anyone else buried in their family lot. She was like, nope, I have picked the people I want buried here. This is it.
Okay, so Mary Telfair never had a husband.
She never got married. There's a lot of speculation about why that I won't go into, but her sister did get married. She really loved her sister. She loved her brother-in-law. She loved her parents. And so that's why it's only them buried in that crypt. She had it sealed after she died. Like that was strict instructions on her will. Like once I die, once I'm buried there, that's it. No one else is going in there. And so it's completely sealed. And she and her sister, Margaret, like to lie about their ages.
Oh, no.
You think that's a new thing. No, this has been going on for a while.
Yes.
They lied about their ages pretty much their entire lives. And if you walk around the monument on their lot, they don't have a birth or death date for either of them.
Oh, just like circa sometime.
This was a secret that both of them were taking to their graves quite literally.
Wow. That is incredible. That's so funny. So what is it about Bonaventure that everybody wanted to be buried there? There's probably a better way for me to phrase that question, but
it's still the place to be buried in Savannah. It is bragging rights.
Yeah.
Because it's this very prestigious Victorian garden cemetery. It wasn't city owned at the time when it opened. It was owned originally by a man named Peter Wiltberger. And Colonial Park Cemetery downtown was filling up. So the city was actually working on starting their second city-owned cemetery, Laurel Grove, but he was able to purchase this land on the Wilmington River, which had been a plantation. And he opened that up as like the elite of Savannah will be buried here.
Wow.
And because it was the Victorian time, the Victorians are obsessed with death, dying, and the mourning process.
Yes.
They really romanticized a lot of that. And they also really liked green spaces. They liked going out into these pretty garden spaces. And that's what Bonaventure became. It was a place for, the elite of Savannah to be buried. And they would go out there on the weekends. And these families would plant flowers in their family lots, maintain them, and spend a whole day. They would bring picnic lunches out there. We have old photographs of family members just sitting in their family lots reading books.
Wow.
This was like a little Saturday getaway from downtown.
Yeah. And that's really interesting how it's like held up that reputation after all these years, because it seems to be like the place. So how did you get involved with doing tours with Bonaventure? Or, that's like a side thing.
Right. So I don't offer tours of Bonaventure on my own.
Right.
I just do the walking history and ghost tours downtown. But the Bonaventure Historical Society does offer free tours on the second Saturday and Sunday of each month.
Got it.
And so I said, hey, I have the availability. I'd be more than willing to step in and help every once in a while. I did that. And now I also am the tour coordinator for the Bonaventure Historical Society.
I love it. You're a very busy lady.
I am.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I think when I first started following your accounts, there was a point where you were doing kind of deep dives on certain like statues in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I found out about Corinne, maybe.
Probably.
Yeah. So are there any other like notable stories from Bonaventure briefly that you want to mention? Because I don't want to ruin the tours for if people want to go.
We can talk about the famous bird girl statue.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So for anybody who's listening who has read Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil or seen Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the book is better.
Yes.
But the iconic bird girl statue is the cover for both.
Right.
And that was just kind of a coincidence. Jack Lee, the photographer who took the iconic bird girl photograph for the book cover, was given special permission to go out to Bonaventure and explore after hours. It's golden hour, sun is setting. He's just looking for like, what's this going to be a good picture for this? The sun was setting and it reflected off this statue in a family lot perfectly. He took the photograph, didn't think anything of it. When he was presenting photographs, that's the one that they chose. And the family whose lot she was in was not expecting that. This wasn't some special statue that was carved specifically for a family member.
Right.
It was a bird feeder that one family member found at a garden show.
Oh, wow. And they just put it at the plot?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was carved by an artist. I want to say she was from Chicago. I might be misremembering that, but she was presenting her carvings at a garden show. It was purchased, put in Bonaventure Cemetery. The photograph was taken. It became the cover. All these people start showing up the family lot, and the family did not want that because something that I keep yelling at people when I see them in the cemetery, the lots themselves are actually private property.
Right.
You're not supposed to go into any of them. And unfortunately, because sometimes when people go on vacation, they leave their brain at home, people have been treating Bonaventure like it's Disney World and just climbing all over stuff.
Oh, right.
I yell at people all the time for, touching Corinne and the big arch and the Lawton Monument. And people were going into that family's lot and stepping all over headstones, being disrespectful. And so the family put her on permanent loan to the Telfair Academy.
Right.
And when we're at Bonaventure doing, historical society stuff, we get a lot of questions like, oh, where's the bird girl? Like, well, we can't have nice things.
Yeah.
So she's over at the Telfair.
Something with the Forrest Gump bench, right? Like that got pulled as well.
Well, what we have is a replica.
It's in the Smithsonian or something.
I think the original is still at Paramount Studios.
Just kidding. I'm glad you know all the facts. Set me straight.
But we do have a studio specific replica that was made by Paramount Studios for Savannah.
Yeah, and us talking about like Forrest Gump and the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, like that could be its own podcast in itself, all the lore behind it. But I do want to say that like the more I've been talking to people about the city, it's so cool to understand how like the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil like book and movie kind of set the precedent for like tourism in Savannah, because before it wasn't.
Savannah has always had its ebb and flow with visitors. This did used to be more of a tourist destination.
And this used to be the capital too, right?
Right. We were the first capital for the state of Georgia. And being a port city, we're also on the railroad lines. But then once the interstate was built, people weren't stopping in Savannah as much, heading down to Florida, because that's what we were. We were a stop when people were going to Florida or coming back from Florida. But with the advent of the interstate, people were passing us by. And, by the 1970s, downtown also looked really, really run down. And thank goodness the Historic Savannah Foundation came in existence in the 1950s and started working really hard to save and preserve these gorgeous historic buildings that we're known for today. But it took a lot of work to revitalize downtown. And by the 1990s, it was starting to look much better, much more recognizable.
Yeah.
Perfect timing, because that's when the book came out. That's when the movie came out. And a lot of people wanted to go see this quirky little southern city. Yeah. And see if they could find some of these interesting characters.
Yes. And like that, also learning about that gave me the context about Lady Chablis and like the kind of lore behind Club One and why it's like such an institution and still stands to this day. And like, I thought it was crazy. She was featured in the book and then nobody else could play her.
Nobody to
So-
play her except for her.
Yeah, so if y'all haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a rewatch. But I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and to kind of share a little bit about your business and about fun things happening in October.
Yeah, thanks for
So,
having me.
yes. And lastly, how can we find you?
None of my socials match because I wasn't doing this to
Yeah.
start a tour
I know,
company.
your personal brand
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Business.
So on TikTok, I am Salt Waves Spanish Moss.
Great.
On Instagram, I am Eni Edenfield, Eenie Edenfield. And on YouTube, I'm Enocha Edenfield. And I also have Patreon. That's just Enocha Edenfield.
Yes, awesome. But thank you for coming on, and I hope you have a really happy Halloween and a great October.
Thanks for having me. Happy Halloween.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye.